The wedding night was a cold, silent pact, until he saw the scars she hid beneath her gown. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main characters. The wedding suite of the Harrington Hotel was silent, wrapped in a soft glow from the antique lamps. Marian Ellis sat at the edge of the king-sized bed, her navy satin robe pooling around her like a quiet wave. She pulled the fabric closer to her shoulders, as if trying to shield herself from the very air of the room. Her eyes were distant, steadying her breath one careful inhale at a time. Across from her, Cole Harrington loosened his tie, moving with the stiffness of a man who had trained himself to appear calm in every boardroom battle. Yet tonight, his confidence felt strangely out of place. This was not a negotiation. This was a wedding night between two people who had signed a contract to stay strangers. "Do not worry," Cole said softly, keeping a respectful distance. "We will follow everything we agreed on. No surprises." Marian nodded, fingers tightening around the robe's collar. "I know. I just need a little space tonight." Her voice cracked slightly, like a window caught by a cold breeze. Cole noticed, but he did not push. He rarely pushed anyone, not since childhood taught him that demanding closeness only made people pull away faster. He turned toward the wardrobe to give her a moment. When she adjusted her robe, the fabric slipped just an inch off her shoulder. It was only for a second, but enough for him to notice a faint mark near her collarbone, the kind that hinted at something stressful from the past rather than anything recent. Nothing graphic, nothing alarming, just the quiet suggestion of a life that had not always been gentle. Marian quickly pulled the robe back up and pressed her arms across her chest, guarding herself. Cole spoke carefully, without raising his voice or stepping closer. "You are safe here, Marian. Whatever your past holds, it is your story to share when you choose. Or never at all." She blinked, surprised by the unexpected kindness. Most people wanted explanations. Most people wanted access. Cole offered her neither, only autonomy. But the room still felt strange to her. Too elegant, too large, too quiet. Only hours earlier they had stood before a judge, exchanging vows they did not believe in, promising a future they did not plan to share. A marriage built out of necessity, not affection. She needed stability to fight for her mother's care. He needed a spouse to calm a restless board of directors hungry for drama. Now, in this room, the pact felt heavier than any ring. Marian swallowed hard. "You do not have to pretend this is normal." Cole let out a low breath. "It is not normal, but we will navigate it together. As partners." He paused, then added, "Partners does not have to mean anything more tonight." For the first time since she stepped into the suite, Marian looked directly at him. He was not cold, not indifferent, just careful, almost gentle. The distance between them was both awkward and strangely comforting. A marriage that was never meant to be real, yet somehow felt too fragile to touch. And as the night deepened around them, one unspoken question lingered between the bride and groom. If a marriage begins as a pact with no warmth at all, what, exactly, could break that silence first? The wedding night was a cold, silent pact, until he saw the scars she hid beneath her gown. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main characters. The wedding suite of the Harrington Hotel was silent, wrapped in a soft glow from the antique lamps. Marian Ellis sat at the edge of the king-sized bed, her navy satin robe pooling around her like a quiet wave. She pulled the fabric closer to her shoulders, as if trying to shield herself from the very air of the room. Her eyes were distant, steadying her breath one careful inhale at a time. Across from her, Cole Harrington loosened his tie, moving with the stiffness of a man who had trained himself to appear calm in every boardroom battle. Yet tonight, his confidence felt strangely out of place. This was not a negotiation. This was a wedding night between two people who had signed a contract to stay strangers. "Do not worry," Cole said softly, keeping a respectful distance. "We will follow everything we agreed on. No surprises." Marian nodded, fingers tightening around the robe's collar. "I know. I just need a little space tonight." Her voice cracked slightly, like a window caught by a cold breeze. Cole noticed, but he did not push. He rarely pushed anyone, not since childhood taught him that demanding closeness only made people pull away faster. He turned toward the wardrobe to give her a moment. When she adjusted her robe, the fabric slipped just an inch off her shoulder. It was only for a second, but enough for him to notice a faint mark near her collarbone, the kind that hinted at something stressful from the past rather than anything recent. Nothing graphic, nothing alarming, just the quiet suggestion of a life that had not always been gentle. Marian quickly pulled the robe back up and pressed her arms across her chest, guarding herself. Cole spoke carefully, without raising his voice or stepping closer. "You are safe here, Marian. Whatever your past holds, it is your story to share when you choose. Or never at all." She blinked, surprised by the unexpected kindness. Most people wanted explanations. Most people wanted access. Cole offered her neither. Only autonomy. But the room still felt strange to her. Too elegant. Too large. Too quiet. Only hours earlier they had stood before a judge, exchanging vows they did not believe in, promising a future they did not plan to share. A marriage built out of necessity, not affection. She needed stability to fight for her mother's care. He needed a spouse to calm a restless board of directors hungry for drama. Now, in this room, the pact felt heavier than any ring. Marian swallowed hard. "You do not have to pretend this is normal." Cole let out a low breath. "It is not normal, but we will navigate it together. As partners." He paused, then added, "Partners does not have to mean anything more tonight." For the first time since she stepped into the suite, Marian looked directly at him. He was not cold, not indifferent, just careful, almost gentle. The distance between them was both awkward and strangely comforting. A marriage that was never meant to be real, yet somehow felt too fragile to touch. And as the night deepened around them, one unspoken question lingered between the bride and groom. If a marriage begins as a pact with no warmth at all, what, exactly, could break that silence first? The next afternoon, the city sky was a pale gray when Marian Ellis followed Cole Harrington into a glass office tower in downtown Dallas. The elevator ride was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of cables and the distant echo of other floors passing by. Marian watched their reflections in the metal doors. She still looked like herself, but with a simple gold band on her left hand that felt heavier than it looked. When the doors opened, they stepped into a sleek law firm lobby. Dark wood, brushed metal, abstract art on the walls. Everything in this place seemed built to remind people of money and power. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit greeted them with a professional smile. "Mr. Harrington, Mrs. Harrington, I am Daniel Price," he said. "Thank you for coming in." Marian's heart skipped at the sound of Mrs. Harrington. It was technically true, but it still felt like a borrowed name. They were led into a private conference room. A folder sat in the center of the polished table, thick with printed pages. Marian took the chair beside Cole, careful not to sit too close. Cole noticed, but said nothing. Daniel opened the folder and folded his hands. As discussed, this agreement is to clarify expectations, responsibilities, and protections for both of you. There is nothing here that cannot be modified if both parties request it. Marian listened, spine straight, fingers interlocked in her lap. "The terms are simple," Daniel continued. 1 year of legal marriage. During that time, you will appear together at key corporate events as a unified couple. Your public lives will reflect a stable marriage, which will, of course, reassure the Harrington Holdings Board. Marian glanced at Cole. His expression was steady, but she could see the tension around his jaw. "For Mrs. Harrington," Daniel added, "this agreement guarantees financial support for your mother's treatment and living expenses. There will also be a monthly stipend paid directly to you. At the end of the year, if both parties decide to divorce, you will receive a final settlement that will give you a clean start." He slid the top pages toward them. Several clauses were highlighted. Cole spoke first. "Marian, this is what I told you about. Security for you and your mother. Clarity for my position at the company." Marian scanned the pages. The words felt dense, but the meaning was clear enough. There were lines about discretion, privacy, non-disclosure of family matters. Lines about attendance at functions, coordinating schedules, presenting a united image. Nothing surprising for a Harrington, she guessed. Then Daniel said, "There is also a clause that states the marriage does not obligate either of you to a romantic relationship, unless both parties consent to that development in the future." Marian's breath eased a little. "May I add something?" she asked. "Of course," Daniel replied. "What would you like to include?" She looked from the lawyer to Cole, gathering her courage. "I want it written clearly that there is no expectation of any physical intimacy. None. And that if that ever changes, it must be discussed honestly and agreed upon by both of us. No pressure. No assumptions." The room went quiet for a second. Daniel nodded and began to write a note. "We can add a specific clause about that. Mutual consent, explicit conversation, no implied obligation." Cole did not flinch. "I agree," he said. "Put it in." Exactly as she requested. Marian's eyes met his, searching for any sign of annoyance or offense. She did not find any. Only a calm sort of respect. Daniel finished typing the addition and turned the document toward them again. "This is your marriage contract," he said. "Not just a legal formality. If something feels unfair, we change it. You both have to live with this." Marian read the new lines carefully. Her chest loosened for the first time in days. It was not freedom, but it was a boundary. A line she had drawn for herself and for the girl she used to be, the one who had once felt trapped and voiceless. When it was time to sign, Cole took the pen first. He signed with a smooth, practiced motion, as if he had signed 1,000 deals before. Perhaps he had. But this one, whether he admitted it or not, was different. Then the pen was in front of Marian. Her hand trembled slightly, but her gaze did not waver. She thought of her mother lying in a hospital bed, of unanswered calls from billing departments, of restless nights calculating impossible numbers. She thought of the quiet way Cole had said, "We will handle it together." She placed the pen on the line and signed her name, Marian Ellis Harrington. The letters looked strange together, but they were now part of her reality. Daniel collected the papers and stood. "Congratulations," he said. "You both have clarity now." As they left the office and stepped back into the elevator, Marian inhaled slowly. "This does not feel like a normal beginning," she murmured. Cole looked at her, honest and unguarded. "It is not a normal beginning," he agreed. "But it does not mean it has to be a bad one." Marian watched the floor numbers count down. Somewhere between the 22nd floor and the lobby, a new thought settled in her mind. She had signed to save her mother. He had signed to save his position. But whether they liked it or not, their lives were now tied together by something no contract could perfectly control: time, choices, and whatever might grow in the spaces they had tried so carefully to define. The weeks that followed moved faster than Marian Ellis expected. One moment she was signing a marriage contract in a law office, and the next she was standing inside the Harrington estate's private dressing wing, staring at a row of gowns she could never have afforded in her old life. Part 4 of their strange new journey had begun, the quiet transformation of a woman who never thought she would walk through rooms like these. "Do not worry," Cole Harrington said as he joined her, keeping a comfortable distance as always. "This is not about changing who you are. It is only about helping you navigate the world the board expects you to appear in." Marian nodded and tried to steady her breath. Everything felt too polished, too large, too carefully arranged. A stylist approached her with a warm smile, holding up fabric swatches and jewelry trays. "Mrs. Harrington, we will keep things simple," she said. "Timeless lines, clean silhouettes, natural colors. Nothing loud. You do not need to compete with anyone." Marian relaxed slightly. Compete. She had never competed with anyone in her life. She had only ever survived. The next few days became a quiet montage of lessons, fittings, and awkward but earnest adjustments. The Harrington staff taught her how to walk into a high-profile event without freezing, how to manage a camera flash without looking startled, and how to politely excuse herself from conversations that felt intimidating. Marian practiced her posture with a book balanced on her head, laughing softly when it fell for the 10th time. The stylist laughed with her and said, "It is fine. Authenticity photographs better than perfection." Through all of it, Cole watched from a respectful distance, speaking up only when advice was genuinely needed. "Do not force a smile," he told her gently during one session. Your real smile is better. It reaches your eyes. The compliment was simple, almost accidental, yet it stayed with her longer than she expected. One evening, as the sun set over the estate's garden, Cole invited her to visit the main hall. The room was vast, filled with framed photos of past Harrington events. People in designer clothing. Perfect lighting. Perfect lives. At least, that was how it looked from the outside. It took me years to feel like I belonged in these rooms, Cole admitted. I do not expect you to feel comfortable overnight. Marian studied his expression, noticing something she had not before. A subtle weight. A quiet loneliness carefully buried beneath his composed exterior. You do not seem like someone who struggles with fitting in, she said. That is the trick, he replied. You learn to wear the suit better than you feel. She understood more than he realized. The montage continued. She learned the layout of the estate, met the Harrington staff, and attended her first strategy briefing where she was only there to observe. Cole explained things to her in a soft voice, never making her feel foolish. During a public relations rehearsal, Marian stumbled over a question about her background. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Cole stepped in calmly. We do not owe anyone our entire personal history. Answer only what you are comfortable with. His tone was steady, protective but not possessive. Later, in the car ride home, Marian murmured, Thank you for stepping in. Cole replied, We are on the same team. That is what a partnership is supposed to feel like. His words warmed her more than the heated seat beneath her. Days turned into small victories. She learned how to walk in heels on marble floors, how to speak with quiet confidence, and how to navigate conversations with people who saw her only as the new wife of a CEO. Yet beneath every polished moment, Marian carried something else, the constant awareness of her boundaries. And Cole honored them exactly as promised. No unexpected closeness. No careless touches. Only respect. One night, after a long session with the public relations team, Marian returned to her room exhausted. She opened her closet to store a new gown and paused. A small card rested on the shelf. In clean handwriting, it read, You handled today with grace. Do not forget that you deserve to be here. Cole. It was not romantic, but it was thoughtful, quiet, and sincere. Standing there with the card between her fingers, Marian felt a shift. Not a leap, not a spark, but a gentle step forward. A sense that this partnership might be turning into something more human than either of them intended. And as she turned off the light for the night, one truth echoed in her mind. They had begun as a contract. But something unplanned was beginning to grow in the spaces confidence never reached, in the moments kindness did. The night of the Harrington Foundation Gala arrived faster than Marian Ellis expected. By the time she stepped out of the car, the world around her felt overwhelming. Flashing lights. Reporters calling out names. Guests in gowns that shimmered beneath the chandeliers of the downtown Dallas Convention Hall. Cole Harrington offered his arm, not touching her, but letting her choose. Marian hesitated, then placed her hand lightly on his sleeve. It was a small decision, but she felt the importance of it. They walked forward together into the glow of cameras. Inside, the grand hall buzzed with conversations, laughter, and polished smiles. It was the kind of environment Marian had watched from far away her entire life, never imagining she would one day stand at the center of it. Just breathe, Cole murmured. Look at me if it becomes too much. His voice steadied her. For a few minutes, everything went smoothly. Guests greeted Cole, board members shook both their hands, and Marian did her best to follow the etiquette she had been taught. She smiled when appropriate and kept her responses warm but brief, just as the public relations trainer had advised. Then, during a pause near the champagne table, a woman in an emerald dress stepped in front of them. Her voice was sharp, polished, and loud enough for nearby guests to hear. So this is the new Mrs. Harrington, she said. Interesting choice, Cole. She does not exactly fit the usual profile. The implication was clear. Marian felt her face heat, but she forced herself to remain composed. The woman leaned slightly closer. Tell me, dear, which part of your resume caught Cole's attention? Your experience or your timing? A few guests turned their heads. Someone stifled a laugh. Marian felt her chest tighten, but she remembered Cole's advice. You do not owe anyone more than you are willing to give. She lifted her chin. My background may not look like yours, Marian said calmly, but I have never pretended to be anything other than who I am. The woman raised an eyebrow. How noble. Before Marian could respond, Cole stepped forward, not aggressively, but with a firm, composed presence that shifted the tone of the entire circle. Eleanor, he said evenly, if you have something to say to me, say it. But you will not speak to my wife like that. The word wife hung in the air, heavier than the gold chandeliers above them. Not contractual, not staged. A simple declaration made with certainty. The woman's expression faltered. I did not mean, you did, Cole replied. But I will give you the benefit of the doubt. This is a charitable event. Let us keep it dignified. Embarrassed, Eleanor stepped back. The surrounding guests quickly pretended they had not been listening. Marian exhaled, shoulders relaxing. She had not realized how tense she had been until the moment passed. Cole turned to her. You handled that with composure. Most people would have walked away angry. I wanted to, she admitted softly. But this is your world. I am trying to respect it. My world, Cole said, is not worth anything if you are mistreated in it. That sentence hit her deeper than she expected. She saw sincerity in his eyes, not obligation. Not performance. Later that evening, as they waited backstage for the CEO introductions, Marian felt the lingering warmth of Cole's defense. She had come into this marriage to secure stability. He had come into it to secure his position. But tonight, something shifted. He had stood beside her not because the contract demanded it, but because he chose to. And choice, she realized, was far more powerful than any clause on paper. As the stage manager signaled for them to step forward, Marian rested her hand lightly on Cole's arm again. This time, she did not hesitate. Whatever this partnership was becoming, the first spark had just been lit. The night after the gala felt quieter than usual. The Harrington estate was dark except for a few hallway lights, and the soft hum of the central heating filled the silence. Marian Ellis slipped off her heels in the foyer, her feet aching from hours of standing and smiling. She expected Cole to head straight to his study the way he usually did after long events. But he did not. He stayed beside her, undoing the top button of his dress shirt and watching her with a calm, unreadable expression. You did well tonight, he said gently. Better than anyone could have expected. Marian gave a tired smile. I did not feel like I did well. My hands were shaking half the time. You hit it, Cole replied. That takes real strength. They walked deeper into the house. The atmosphere was softer than the bright, polished gala. Here, it smelled like cedar wood and the faint trace of Cole's cologne. They reached the wide windows overlooking the garden. Moonlight spilled across the marble floor. Marian wrapped her arms around herself, not out of fear, but out of the familiar habit of bracing against vulnerability. Cole noticed. You do not have to tighten up every time the room gets quiet, he said softly. Silence does not mean danger. Marian let out a slow breath. I know. I am trying. But your world feels so different from mine. Everyone watches. Everyone judges. He stepped closer, carefully, giving her enough distance to move if she wanted. I used to feel that way too. When I took over the company, I thought I had to be perfect, strong, limitless. If I cracked even once, it felt like everything would fall apart. She looked up at him, surprised. You? You always seem so in control. That is the mask, Cole admitted. The one I put on when the board expects perfection. It was the first time he had ever spoken about himself without filters. No corporate tone. No polished confidence. Just honesty. Marian leaned slightly against the windowsill. And tonight, defending me. Was that part of the mask too? No, Cole said quietly. That was real. The words settled between them like warm light. He continued, his voice lower now. When I stood up for you, it was not because the contract required it. It was because I did not like seeing you hurt. You deserve respect. Her heartbeat kicked up, not out of fear, but out of something gentler. Something she did not fully understand yet. She looked down at her hands. I am not good at being close to people. Even before the trauma, I was always cautious. I know, Cole answered. Marian slowly lifted her eyes. How could you know? Because, he said, you treat kindness like it is unfamiliar. You brace yourself every time someone offers it, as if you are waiting for the moment it turns into something else. Her breath caught. It was true, and he had noticed. Cole did not move closer. Instead, he leaned lightly against the opposite end of the windowsill so that they shared the same space without pressure. You do not have to tell me anything you are not ready to tell, he said. I just want you to know that whatever happened before, it does not define how you should be treated now. The room grew still. Not heavy, not frightening, just still. Marian felt an unexpected warmth rise in her chest. She whispered, "You make it sound easy to trust someone again." Cole shook his head. "It is not easy, but I will not rush you." Moonlight framed his face. He looked nothing like the cold, distant CEO the world believed him to be. In this quiet moment, he looked almost vulnerable himself. Marian swallowed gently. "Thank you for giving me space. And for tonight. At the gala. You would have done the same for me," he said. Maybe she would have. Maybe she already had, in small ways she did not recognize yet. As the house settled around them, Marian realized something. This was the first time they were alone together without tension. The first time the silence felt safe. And that quiet shift, the soft beginning of trust, felt more intimate than any touch ever could. 2 weeks after the gala, just when the tension between Marian Ellis and Cole Harrington had begun to soften into something gently familiar, the first real storm of their contract marriage arrived. It began quietly, as most trouble in wealthy families does. Cole had left early for an executive meeting at Harrington Holdings. Marian stayed behind at the estate to prepare documents for her mother's next medical evaluation. She planned a calm morning, but calm vanished the moment the family's longtime house manager knocked gently and handed her a tablet. "Mrs. Harrington, I thought you should see this before anyone else." Marian frowned and tapped the screen. A headline flashed across a financial gossip site. "Who is Marian Ellis?" Rumors claim Harrington bride hid her family debt and medical crisis. Her stomach dropped. There were photographs of her mother being wheeled out of a clinic. Photos taken without permission, without compassion. There were exaggerated claims about Marian's secret financial motives, and a short paragraph suggesting she had rushed into marriage to secure Cole's fortune. Marian felt her knees weaken. She grabbed the desk for support. "Who would post this?" she whispered. The house manager replied softly, "Someone who wants to discredit you. Or Mr. Harrington. Or both." Marian knew exactly who would benefit from tearing down their public image. Cole's aunt. The woman who wanted a CEO position and had already shown her willingness to humiliate Marian during the gala. A wave of shame, fear, and helpless anger washed over her. She had experienced judgment before, but nothing like this. Not headlines. Not strangers dissecting her life. Her phone vibrated. Multiple messages. Screenshots. Voicemails from unknown numbers. The noise grew louder, sharper, more invasive. By the time Cole called, her hands were trembling. "Marian," he said, voice urgent. "Do not read anything else. I am coming home." "I cannot hide this," she said softly. "They are attacking my mother. They are twisting everything. This marriage was never meant to hurt your career." "This is not your fault," Cole said immediately. "You did nothing wrong." But Marian shook her head, even though he could not see her. "I should not have let myself feel comfortable in your world. I do not belong in it." "Yes, you do," Cole insisted. "Stay where you are. I will be there in 15 minutes. But before he arrived, another notification appeared on her screen. A short video clip, grainy, but clear enough to recognize her mother's face, filmed through a clinic window. Marian pressed a hand over her mouth. This was not just gossip. This was cruelty. They had dragged her mother into a corporate power struggle. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered to herself, "I cannot let this destroy his career. I cannot be the reason they attack him." When Cole finally rushed through the front door, she was already in the entryway with her coat on, gripping a small overnight bag. "Marian," he said breathlessly, "what are you doing?" She looked fragile but determined. "I am leaving for a while," she said. "If I stay, they will keep using me against you. The board will pressure you. Someone wants you to fail, and I cannot be the weapon they use." Cole stepped forward, alarmed. "You are not a weapon. You are my partner." Her voice cracked. "Our partnership is exactly why I need to step back. I care too much about protecting your career to let myself be the reason it falls apart." Cole froze, stunned by her words. She was not running out of fear. She was leaving out of loyalty. "Marian, please," he said. "We will face this together." But she shook her head, blinking tears. "For your sake, Cole, I cannot stay. Not like this." And with that, Marian stepped past him and walked out the door into the cold Dallas afternoon, unaware that her leaving would ignite the fight Cole never knew he needed to win. Cole Harrington did not waste a single hour after Marian Ellis walked out of the Harrington estate. The moment the front door closed behind her, Something inside him shifted from controlled patience to absolute resolve. He had let too many things in his life be decided by board members, public image, and the approval of people who cared more about power than truth. But losing Marian was not something he would allow them to decide. He went straight to the headquarters of Harrington Holdings, still in the suit he had worn that morning, barely noticing the stares from employees as he strode through the lobby. His assistant rushed after him. "Mr. Harrington, the board is already gathered in the conference room. They called an emergency meeting regarding the articles." "Good," Cole said. "Let them stay. I have something to say." The boardroom was full. His aunt, Eleanor Whitford, sat at the head of the long table, already assuming authority she did not have. Several board members whispered among themselves, tablets open, headlines glowing across the screens. "Cole," Eleanor said smoothly, "we are glad you joined. We need to discuss how your wife's situation is affecting our reputation." Cole did not sit. He placed a folder on the table and looked her in the eye. "This is not a discussion," he said. "This is a statement." The room fell silent. Cole opened the folder, revealing printed screenshots, digital traces, and a report from a private investigator. He spoke clearly, firmly. "The gossip campaign targeting my wife and her mother came from a media contractor hired by someone on this board." Several members stiffened. Eleanor crossed her arms. "Are you suggesting?" "I am not suggesting," Cole said. "I am confirming." He slid the investigator's summary across the table. Eleanor's name was highlighted. Gasps echoed down both sides of the conference room. "You used my wife's medical vulnerabilities," Cole continued, "to create a scandal you hoped would weaken my position. You went after a woman who has done nothing but try to adapt to a life she never asked for." Eleanor's face tightened. "This is outrageous. You cannot prove intent." "I can prove payment records," Cole replied. "And the board can review them right now." Two members reached for the folder immediately. Cole took a breath, steady but burning with conviction. "If this company wants leadership built on humiliation and cruelty, then I will step down today. But if it wants integrity, if it wants a CEO who protects both the brand and the people attached to it, then I am still the right person for this job." The room stayed frozen. One of the senior board members finally cleared his throat. "Cole, we will vote. But I believe you have made your position extremely clear." Another member added quietly, "And I believe Mrs. Harrington deserves an apology from all of us." Eleanor stood abruptly, realizing the tide had turned. "This meeting is over." "No," the senior member said. "Your seat on this board is under review. You may leave." Eleanor's heels echoed sharply as she exited the room, but Cole did not watch her. "Go." He was already turning away, because the board was no longer his focus. Marian was. He left the building with a clarity he had never felt before. The sun had begun to set, casting the city in warm orange light. Cole pulled out his phone and checked the locator application connected to Marian's car, the one she had forgotten she had agreed to share when the chauffeur first assigned it to her. She was not at her mother's clinic, not at any hotel in the city, not with anyone from the foundation team. She was on the outskirts of Dallas, near the small apartment she had once lived in before their marriage. Cole exhaled, relief washing through him. He got in his car and began driving, rehearsing the only words that mattered. "Marian, I did not fight for my position today. I fought for you. Because you are not the problem. You are the reason I finally learned what matters." And as he pressed harder on the accelerator, heading toward the woman he refused to lose, he knew one thing for certain. He had won the battle. But the real moment, the one that could change everything, was still ahead of him. Cole Harrington reached the quiet, older apartment complex just as dusk settled over Dallas. The sun had lowered behind the buildings, leaving the courtyard in a soft, muted glow. He recognized the place from the background of a few photos Marian Ellis had once shown him, pictures she had shared without meaning to reveal anything personal. Her car was parked near the stairwell. Cole stepped out, exhaling slowly. He had faced the Harrington board with unwavering resolve, but the thought of losing Marian made his heartbeat unsteady in a way no corporate battle ever had. He climbed the stairs and paused at her door. Light slipped through the narrow gap at the bottom, and he could hear faint movement inside. He knocked gently. "Marian?" "It is me." There was a quiet pause, then soft footsteps approached. When the door opened, Marian stood there wearing a simple sweater, her eyes red from crying but her posture composed. as if she was trying to appear stronger than she felt. "You should not be here," she whispered. "I know," Cole said, "but I will stay until you hear me out." She stepped back, allowing him inside. The apartment was small, tidy, homey in a way that made Cole realize it had held more comfort for her than the entire Harrington estate. Marian folded her arms. "You should focus on stabilizing your company. The board will blame me for everything." "They already tried," Cole replied. "And I stopped them." Her eyes widened slightly. Cole took a breath. "I confronted them today. I presented evidence. Your privacy was violated by someone who wanted my position. Not because of you. Because they wanted to hurt me." Marian sat down slowly on the small couch. "But the articles, my mother, they used us." "Yes," Cole said, sitting across from her. "And I refused to let them continue. The board removed Eleanor Whitford from her position. She has no power over either of us now." Marian stared at him, stunned. "You did that? For me?" "Yes," Cole answered. "Because you were hurt. Because your mother was dragged into something she never should have been part of. And because I will not allow anyone to treat you as if you were less deserving of respect." She looked down at her hands. "I left because I thought stepping away was the only way to protect you." Cole leaned forward slightly, careful with his movements. "You protected me more than you realize. But that should not require sacrificing yourself." A soft silence settled between them. Then Cole spoke again, this time with a quiet sincerity that reached deeper than any of his previous words. "Marian, our marriage began as a contract, a shield, a strategy. But what I fought for today was not strategy. It was you. Not the role you play. Not the obligation. You." Her breath trembled. He continued, "You are strong. You are compassionate. You face the world even when it hurts. That is not something to hide, and it is not something to be ashamed of. And if you choose to come back, it will not be because the contract demands it. It will be because you know you are safe with me." Marian lifted her eyes slowly, searching his face for even the slightest trace of obligation. All she saw was honesty, and something tender that neither of them had dared to admit before. She whispered, "What happens to the contract?" Cole gave a faint, gentle smile. "We can keep it, or we can tear it up. It depends on what you want. Not what the board wants. Not what I want alone. What we choose together." It was the first time she had heard the word "we" sound like a promise instead of a performance. Marian stood, walking to the small kitchen counter. She picked up the folder containing their marriage contract. She held it quietly, weighing her thoughts, her fears, and her hope. Then she turned back to him. "I want to come home," she said softly. "But I want to come home as someone you chose, not someone a contract demanded." Cole's expression softened with relief he did not hide. "Then come home as the person you are. Not as a role. Come home because I want you there." Marian stepped closer, closing the distance between them until only a few feet remained. "Then take me home." He nodded, offering his hand, not demanding, not assuming, simply offering. She placed her hand in his. As they walked out of the apartment together, the night air felt warmer, the path ahead no longer defined by clauses or signatures, but by something far more real. And for the first time since their wedding night, the silence between them was not cold. It was the beginning of something they had never planned, but were finally ready to choose.